California's natural gas storage wells. And just a brief recap before we go on to our first panel. And first of all, I appreciate all the panelists for coming. It was important to sort of stop and assess where we are regarding ensuring the safety of the well integrity and what is going on specifically at Aliso Canyon, but this discussion is broader among the 14 storage reservoirs that we have in the state. Well, it was back in October that we had the original gas leak at Aliso Canyon. That's down in Southern California near the Porter Ranch community. Took about 4 months to put it out. They had multiple attempts at shutting that down that were unsuccessful. Finally, in February, it was shut down. It's now been an additional 2 months. Over 8,000 households were temporarily relocated. Several thousand are still out of their homes, either wanting to make sure that it's safe there, having tests of their homes done. There have been continual concerns and reoccurrence of symptoms. The Department of Public Health for the county is engaged. There are health studies and investigations underway. Now many of those homeowners are facing moving out of their hotels and moving into apartments. And they frankly call our office and just want to know, is it safe to move back? How can we ensure that this won't happen again? How can we minimize risks? We also know the gas leak had impacts on climate. 100,000 metric tons of methane were released. That's about 20% of their state's emissions in methane over a year's time. Hopefully, SoCalGas and our Air Resources Board will come to an agreement on the best way to mitigate that problem. State agencies, I want to give a shout out, actually have done extremely well with Aliso Canyon. This was not a natural disaster like an earthquake. This was perhaps an avoidable situation, but stepping into the mix, Department of Conservation, Division of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources, also known as DOGGR, has done a great job. They've been on the scene. I notice Jason Marshall here from day one, showing up in the community when needed.
Madam Chair, did you say geothermal? Did I hear correctly?
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
Meanwhile, we want more geothermal down in the Salton Sea area, don't we? Yes, we do. Thank you. Every time I say geothermal, I have to put in an advertisement. It's a long-standing commitment. DOGGR was joined by the Air Resources Board, Public Utilities Commission. I attended a Friday night hearing with 1,500 constituents down there, and Matt Rodriguez from Cal EPA, the secretary, was there, and Secretary John Laird, OWEA, and the list goes on and on. South Coast Air District is involved. The leak has stopped today for now. Today's focus, though, is on gas storage well regulations and their role in ensuring safety. DOGGR has already started to take action to update its regulations to improve well safety. It's been since the 70s, 80s, some updates in the 90s. Now they're moving forward. We will hear about its recent emergency regulations and its plan to move forward with the regular rulemaking. Now there are 14 gas storage reservoirs. Every one is unique, and our second panel will be looking at the differences between some of the natural gas reservoirs, and there's a map in your packet showing where they are located around the state. It is important that the appropriate minimum standards be set to provide transparency and accountability. Today's hearing will, I hope, raise some of the issues to be considered to ensure safety as we move forward. While today's hearing is motivated and informed by the Aliso Canyon leak and the response to it, it is not specific just to Aliso Canyon. Today's hearing is not about energy reliability concerns raised by the continuing injection moratorium at Aliso Canyon. And on May 10th, looking at the chair of the Energy Committee, Senator Hueso, you will be having an oversight hearing on energy reliability, correct? I look forward to attending that. Additionally, the administration has recently proposed several budget actions related to Aliso Canyon. They will be addressed through the budget process. The first of today's panels is the Department of Conservation and DOGGR. The regulators will be followed by a stakeholder panel featuring the gas storage industry, labor, and the environmental community who've been asked to provide their perspective. I should let you know that those of you wish to submit written comments, we'll accept them up through Friday. All PowerPoints and other materials from this hearing will be posted on the Senate Natural Resources and Water Committee's website. And with that, I'm looking at other members if you wanted to make any opening comments. Otherwise, I'd like to call forward the first panel. And I have to make a presentation over in a budget subcommittee. A member of this committee, would you like to take over, Senator Allen, just for introductions of the first panel? I'll call them up. They're going to be speaking for 15 minutes. It's an overview of their safety regulations and what they're working on. Thank you very much. So let's call forward the first panel. We are pleased to introduce Dave Bunn. He's the Director, Department of Conservation. Jason Marshall, who's spent a lot of time in the field. I think I've seen you more down in the district than up here lately. Chief Deputy Director, Department of Conservation. And Ken Harris, Oil and Gas Supervisor for Dogger. So they're going to be giving us an update. And Senator Allen, if you wouldn't mind, thank you very much. About 15 minutes, and open it up for Q&A, and I'll be right back.
Good to see you, gentlemen. I suppose we'll start with Dr. Bunn.
Good morning, Chairman and members. My name is David Bunn. I'm the Director of the Department of Conservation. The administration is in the process of transforming the Division of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources. This effort began over 2 years ago, and it will continue for the next couple years. We are not the same organization we were 2 years ago or even a year ago. The Department of Conservation is proactive. We're strengthening recruitment and training. We're increasing transparency. We're implementing an ambitious organizational change program. We're closely coordinating with the PUC, the Water Board, the Energy Commission, the Air Resources Board, and numerous other state and local agencies. We're stepping up the science and technical capacity, and we're improving management and accountability. Last October, before Aliso Canyon gas leak, we released a renewal plan that described the major components to overhaul the regulatory program. The renewal plan identified the need to overhaul and update statutes and regulations for well construction, testing, monitoring, among several other issues that need to be addressed, such as the management of idle wells and the strengthening of enforcement. Both of those issues we've sponsored in bills in this legislature this year. Unfortunately, the Aliso Canyon gas leak occurred before we improved these new measures and strengthened the law with regard to well construction, monitoring, and testing. Due to the Aliso Canyon, the administration and the department have moved the safety operations of gas storage facilities to the top of our list of priorities. The goal is to never have another Aliso Canyon event again, and we are committed to that. It is now clear that there is a need for a dedicated program for the regulation of gas storage facilities due to the unique features and safety issues related to such facilities as compared to oil production facilities. In the past, wells for gas storage were managed as part of the program to manage oil wells and fields. We are in the process of establishing a new program focused on safety and environmentally sound operation of gas storage facilities. Supervisor Ken Harris is here. In a few minutes, he will discuss that in detail. With regard to gas storage facilities, the department is working aggressively and proactively on several fronts, and there's a lot going on. With me today is Chief Deputy Jason Marshall, and he will discuss the pre-existing gas storage regs prior to Aliso Canyon and the emergency regs. And then Oil and Gas Supervisor Ken Harris will discuss the permanent rulemaking underway and comparisons to API Rule 1171, which is the American Petroleum Institute guidelines. So with that, I'll turn it over and have Jason Marshall.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, David. Good morning, members. Very briefly, I won't restate everything about the renewal plan, but the important piece to know about that renewal plan is that the underground injection control program, which is where the gas storage regulations had resided, was identified as something that we really needed to take a look at and reform. With Aliso Canyon, we accelerated that quite significantly with the emergency regulations released on February 5th. As David indicated, these new gas storage facility regulations will be a separate program, distinct from underground injection control. This is an important distinction to make. Gas storage facilities have different operational considerations. For instance, they operate at significantly higher pressures than an ordinary water flood or steam flood operation. To understand the new emergency regulations, I'm going to give a little bit of a background on what the existing regulations were. Now, all wells in the state need to go through a permitting process. We call it a notice of intent to drill, and it includes things like the construction of the well, how big is the casing, how deep is the casing, where is the cement placed. But above and beyond that, UIC and gas storage facility wells need to have an additional approval. There are additional requirements. So once the well itself is approved, then the actual application, whether it's, again, gas storage, injection and withdrawal, or water flood if it's a UIC program, there are these additional requirements. Some of them are statewide, and some of them are approved as something called a project approval letter, and these are done district by district. Dogger has a number of districts across the state, and each district has, in some cases, reasons to have different permitting practices. You'll see how some of these things we're going to make more uniform. For permitting of a gas storage well, the existing regulations before the emergency regulations required that the operator provide evidence of a competent caprock, the geologic structure that makes sure that the gas that is going to be put into that formation stays in the formation underground. They need to provide evidence that it will remain in that zone, that it won't migrate out of the zone, the geologic zone. They need to have accurate and operational pressure gauges. The design specifications for the components of the well, valves, tubing, needs to be sufficiently high rated, say 3,000 PSI. If one is going to be injecting at 2,500, you need to have that higher rating. You can't be injecting above what the equipment is rated for. And if there are safety devices, surface or subsurface, that are going to be installed in the well, and again, this is the pre-existing regulations, they needed to be tested in accordance with the manufacturer specifications. Once the wells are approved, the testing under the pre-existing regulations was, frankly, a little bit sparse. Once the wells went on injection, they needed to be tested within 3 months. And then after that, the periodic testing requirements were established in the project approval letters, those district-by-district conditions. In the case of Aliso Canyon, the well was required to have an annual test, a temperature and noise test, which is really aimed at identifying whether there is an existing leak. There were gaps in those regulations, and that's some of those gaps we filled with our emergency regulations effective on February 5. The changes in those regulations were made in consultation with experts from the national labs, experts in geology, engineering, oil and gas operations, some of the very people who assisted us in the consultation on how to control the well. For the permitting of a well now, under the emergency regulations, the operators have to maintain compliance with their approvals. This sounds a little bit self-evident, but we needed to put it into the regulations. If there was something that was required in the past, and it had fallen into either lapsed, hadn't been done in the first place, the operator now needs to go back and revisit that. There's a higher standard for determining caprock integrity, and operators now must provide evidence that their proposed minimum and maximum operating pressures, and maximum is really the one we're more concerned about in California, but the minimum and maximum operating pressures are suitable for the gas storage formation. For operation of the gas storage wells, there is now daily leak monitoring. There's a leak detection protocol that operators need to obtain approval for, and they must daily test within 100 feet of each wellhead and at the wellhead and any associated flow lines. Dogger is receiving testing protocols now, even as the daily testing is going on, and this is actually one of the very positive things to come out of the whole Aliso Canyon incident, is the increased coordination that we see between the air districts, the air board, and the division. Other additional requirements now, daily pressure monitoring of the annular space between tubing and packer. This is another situation where if we had had this requirement before, we likely would have detected the leak at Aliso Canyon sooner. There's a new mechanical integrity testing requirement, and At least once a year, the wells must be tested for leaks using a test like a temperature and noise log. We no longer have differences district to district for those testings. These are not subject to a project approval letter. This is now must happen to all wells. At least every 5 years, and more frequently if the division finds reason, we will require a pressure test. It's a full spin up the pressure in the well and make sure that it can withstand those pressures. And there's automatic mechanical integrity testing now required if during operation there's a change in pressure or flow that's anomalous, can't be explained. Risk management plans must now be prepared by operators for storage facilities. These include identifying risks and mitigation or avoidance strategies to be taken to reduce the threats. And those risks need to include emergency response planning. They need to include consideration of geologic hazards such as faults and corrosion or other degradation of equipment. In summary, DARGO is in the process of taking steps to reform gas storage requirements. And we accelerated that process when Aliso Canyon proved those changes needed to go into effect immediately. The close working relationship between regulating agencies forged during the response is transforming into a more robust and routinized relationship for coordinating and strengthening regulatory oversight. The emergency regulations are big improvements for monitoring and for project requirements, and were developed with expert consultation. But we knew that further changes would be needed. Those changes are going to require a permanent rulemaking process that invites even further public and expert consultation. Ken Harris, Oil and Gas Supervisor, is now going to describe what he and DARGO are doing to further refine gas storage regulations in the permanent rulemaking.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to update the committee on the division's efforts to make California gas storage facilities safe. The leak at Aliso Canyon has sparked a national discussion on gas storage facility safety. The discussion includes entities from neighborhood groups up to the federal level, including the Department of Energy, Congress, and other states. I can tell you firsthand after attending a national meeting over the weekend that states are watching what California is doing with gas storage. The division continues to work with the Public Utility Commissions, the Energy Commission, the Air Board, and others regarding gas storage safety and reliability. For all the agencies, the new normal is working together to ensure our gas storage facilities are as safe as possible. As I answer questions 3 and 4 from Senator Pavley's April 13th letter, I want to outline the major efforts underway at the division related to gas storage safety. By statute, the division's authority and primary responsibility covers gas storage wells that inject and withdraw gas from subsurface storage reservoirs. First, an update on how things are going at Aliso Canyon. We continue to supervise SoCalGas as it implements the March 14 order, which is commonly known as a safety review. SoCalGas is running each of its 114 wells through a battery of 6 tests required in the order. The division has committed 7 full-time engineers to analyze the 6 test results from each well. The division has created a public website that is continually updated that displays the status of each well and the actual test results. The division is conducting an independent root cause analysis into the leak at SS-25. Our investigation team coordinates daily with the CPUC as the CPUC conducts its investigation using an independent third party. We continue to use technical expertise from the Lawrence Berkeley, Lawrence Livermore, and Sandia National Labs on a weekly basis to inform our decisions. We are currently extending our contract with the national labs and adding additional funding to ensure their availability over the next year. On July 12th and 13th of this year, the U.S. Department of Energy is hosting a workshop on well integrity for natural gas storage in depleted reservoirs and aquifers. I sit on the technical steering committee with staff from the national labs. DOGGR staff will participate in that workshop. We expect the workshop will draw experts from academia, government, and industry from across the nation to discuss a wide variety of well integrity topics, such as the use of subsurface safety valves. We also are participating on the Interstate Oil and Gas Compact Commission's Gas Well Safety Task Force. In regard to question 3 from Senator Pavley's letter, the pre-rulemaking discussion questions for gas storage wells and the division's plans for future rulemaking to gas storage wells. The division, as was mentioned earlier, is undertaking rulemaking to make significant revisions to the regulations governing gas storage in California. This rulemaking effort will build on the requirements adopted by the emergency rulemaking to update regulations governing the gas storage, to address concerns identified by the division and other key stakeholders. The purpose of the rulemaking document was to outline the division's immediate regulatory goals and to solicit specific input on how to best these goals. The goals included clarifying standards for gas storage project data requirements, clarifying well construction standards for gas storage wells, clarifying testing and monitoring standards and other risk mitigation protocols to ensure safe operations, and finally, clarifying emergency response plan standards to ensure rapid and safe response should an emergency situation arise. From that solicitation, we received 26 separate letters on the goals and questions posed. The suggestions that we received are being incorporated into the draft regulations as appropriate. The process to develop these regulations will include multiple opportunities for all stakeholders to participate in the formulation of the regulations. What we learned from the 2 root cause investigations, the DOE workshop in Denver, results from the Aliso Canyon well-by-well safety review, and possible changes to state and federal law will likely not be available in time to incorporate into the current draft regulations. Therefore, we are informing everyone to expect a second round of rulemaking next year to ensure California's regulations are as complete and as comprehensive as possible. In regards to question 4, the relevant portions of the American Petroleum Institute's recommended practices 1171 related to gas storage. As a general point, prior to regulations at Dogger and most jurisdictions were written to detect a leak. Our regulations need to be updated and strengthened to incorporate strong preventive measures. The Dogger emergency regulations and Order 1109 are designed to identify risk and prevent a leak through proactive testing and monitoring. The Dogger directives are more specific and rigorous than API recommended practice 1171 on cement, well inspections, and risk management. And I'll just give you one example, and that has to do with casing inspections when you're testing the casing tubing and tubing annulus. API 1171 sets the test pressure at 110 of maximum allowable operating pressure. Our safety review sets it at 115%. 1171 sets the test to hold 90% for 30 minutes, and our safety review sets it for 1 hour, of which no 30-minute period can lose 10%. Additionally, the safety review calls for 2 casing inspections using MagnaFlux and ultrasonic technologies. The 1171 provides general guidelines for testing evaluations, while the safety review gives specific PAIL-FAST criteria for casing inspections, cement evaluations, and pressure test. A senior engineer must approve each test. A well must pass all 6 prescribed tests before allowed to go back on injection. We continue to work with all natural gas operators in California to implement the emergency regulations. Recently, we met with all 6 operators of gas storage facilities to answer their questions about the emergency regulations. During this meeting, operators acknowledged the need for a new level.
I just need to interrupt. I'm so sorry. I have to go vote in Budget Committee, so I'm going to pass the gavel to Ben Wesso to continue the hearing. I'll be back.
During this meeting, the operators acknowledged the need for a new level of coordination. We discussed working with the Air Board to establish appropriate leak technology, detection protocols and to identify appropriate leak detection equipment. As Mr. Marshall mentioned, we are seeing real results from the emergency regulations now in effect. The daily monitoring at SoCalGas's Playa del Rey facility resulted in the detection of 2 minor leaks. One leaking well was repaired, and another one was isolated from the reservoir. On April 15th, SoCalGas agreed to put its wells at Playa del Rey through the same testing protocols as Aliso Canyon. They are preparing a work plan for the division's review and approval. We anticipate the work will begin in early May. A major change in the division is information transparency. We continue to keep stakeholders informed through our website, our public affairs office, and in personal meetings. On April 14th, Ed Randolph from the CPUC and I met with the Porter Ranch Community Advisory Committee to update them on safety review and reliability questions. We will continue to make ourselves available to the public. Finally, I hope that what I've described gives the committee some sense of the division's commitment to make gas storage in California safe and to ensure the protection of public health and the protection of the environment, which are our first priority.
Question. Thank you, Senator Hueso. Couple questions. First one is just more of a technical one related to, and you mentioned, Mr. Harris, that subsurface safety valves. If there had been a subsurface safety valve at Aliso Canyon, could that have solved the problem a lot earlier, at least in terms of the release?
I would have to speculate on that, and I don't have an answer. I can tell you that what we're finding out is subsurface safety valves are very problematic. They have a failure rate of about 30%. PG&E, for example, uses them on their McDonald Island because of the close proximity of all their wells. And every year, about a third of those have to be either replaced or pulled to be repaired. I've asked people about why that is, and it's just the nature of the environment that they work in and the design of the valves. It doesn't mean that there isn't a better mousetrap down the road, but right now we don't have that, and we are going to be discussing that at the Denver conference.
Okay. And then another question. Much of the criticism that has been leveled against our government agencies has been that the signs at Aliso Canyon were there, but that the PUC and Dogger didn't talk to each other. There was really a lack of communication is some of the sense that we have. Now, PG&E will be submitting its gas transmission and storage rate case at the end of the year for, as you know, for PG&E's McDonald Island facility is almost as large as Aliso Canyon. How does Dogger intend to participate in that proceeding? Any thoughts?
Senator, the direct answer to the question of the PUC is that we will be reviewing the information that is submitted to them. The issue in the past that I think you were referring to is the November of 2014 rate case, where information was presented by SoCalGas suggesting that they had an aging infrastructure. I'll put it that way, an aging infrastructure. Dogger did not know about that particular filing and did not review it to the detriment, I think, across the board. I would note that this well, that SS-25 that failed, did pass its mechanical integrity test about 11 months prior and was scheduled to have the repeat of that test when the leak was discovered. What's important, the takeaway that we've got now is the increased coordination between the PUC and Dogger that needs to happen and that will happen going forward. In terms of Dogger reviewing the important to Dogger parts of filings that go forward to the PUC. So we don't know anything about rates and rate cases.
No, but
the structure, we definitely want to see if there's information that is presented that suggests that the operators themselves know that they've got some liabilities on their hands that they need to take care of, that we perk up and take a look at that closely and focus our attention on that. We do have a BCP pending in the legislature right now for additional staffing to support that gas storage oversight. And we hope with those resources, we're going to be able to be quite a bit more responsive.
Right, and as you know, the commissioners, the only way they can vote on an item is with the evidence that's presented to them, and that's the only way that they can and that they need to be able to vote because of that evidence. And so the goal, I would think, is when indications in a rate case, here again, it doesn't have to do with you setting the rates, but it's the issues that are raised that then need to be reviewed to see if they warrant further resources to make those changes, or if the claims are valid or not. So I think that's where I think we're looking to see some strength and a little more robust communication.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's where we intend to go.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do we have Senator Leyva?
Mr. Chair, good morning. I had a question about the well integrity workshop that you're offering in July. Is this something that's been done in the past?
Actually, that is being sponsored by the Department of Energy. It's going to be held in Denver. And no, this is a direct result of Aliso Canyon.
And that was my question, is we weren't doing these in the past. So hopefully this will be something that's ongoing and making sure we're always checking on the integrity of the wells and educating the people that are doing the job there. So that's great, and I just hope that we continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank the panel. And I guess just some comments of mine. Given the amount of infrastructure in this state, it's surprising that we don't have more incidents like this. But at the same time, when we do have an incident like this, it usually comes at a great cost to personal property, to lives. So, I'm just wondering, in terms, all these events usually are tied to a maintenance issue, usually. And I appreciate your comments about being more mindful of how these facilities are maintained. And it just seems to me that there's a stakeholder interest by everybody's part to make sure these facilities are well maintained, given just the amount of destruction that we've seen in the past with oil spills on beaches, with explosions in communities, the gas refinery explosion, the gas pipe explosion, just things like that seem to me that are preventable with, I know that our state is limited in terms of the amount of human resources that we have to be on top of every detail, but there needs to be some kind of accountability to these companies that do have substantial profits from these facilities, and yet oftentimes cut back on some of the most important areas of maintenance. So we're going to move forward with our next panel that will hopefully shed some light into those areas as well. From the more private perspective, we have Roger Schwecke. He is the Vice President of Transmission and Storage for SoCal Gas. And keeping in mind that SoCal Gas operates about half of the gas storage wells in the state at 4 facilities. So imagine one facility goes down, and we're talking about an enormous disruption, the ability to provide energy to our state. So making sure that there is safety and there's the ability to service the people of our state becomes that much more important when there are so few facilities that provide so much of what the state needs. We're going to have David Weber, President and CEO of Gill Ranch Storage, LLC, who is representing the 4 independent storage well operators that are primarily located in Central and Northern California. We have Robin Downs, President of Local 483, the Utility Workers Union of America, and he can provide a perspective on safety, given his experience in the field, and then it'll give definitely a worker's perspective, which is very important in this mix. Brianna Mordick is also here. She's a senior scientist with the Natural Resources Defense Council. Her background is as a petroleum geologist and now as an expert in injection well policy nationwide, which has been a growing discussion out there. It's even reached the presidential debate. So this issue has become front and center as a national discussion. So again, each of you will have the same amount of time, 10 to 12 minutes approximately, to provide your perspectives and on ensuring the safety of natural gas storage wells.